Oh, GG. There we go. Yeah. Hello, Fiona. Let me just. Hello. Oh, GG.
Okay.
There we go. There we go. Yeah.
Only thing is, I'm on my phone.
Hello, Fiona. Hello. Oh,
I'm
GG.
I'm on my phone,
Okay.
which is not ideal.
Yeah.
But can you? I'm on my phone.
Hello, Fiona. Hello. Okay, I don't know why that's just repeating.
All right, hold on a sec, guys. This is not the plan, but let me try and fix this so I can on the phone.
There we go. No problem.
You can hear me. Is that okay?
Yes, everything. I can
Darren?
hear you perfectly. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah, technology. Don't you just love it?
Yeah, and it also makes it's a bit more frustrating when you're on the inside of a firewall. So a great wall of technology blocking.
Absolutely, yeah. I know. But anyway, we made it this far. I'm going to try and find another stand for the phone. Having set up everything carefully over there, I just need to pull everything together over here. But anyway, let's try that. Okay, so hi everyone from West London. Oh, hi Darren, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks. And yourself? Just a little bit sweaty. I'm nervous.
So, well, there's a bit of that around here as well. It has to be said. But anyway, never mind. Shall we press on? I'm delighted that you asked me to do this, by the way, and your questions are fantastic. So while I'll keep jiggling around just so I can actually see you properly, or see myself properly as well. But we should press on, shouldn't we?
Yeah. I'm genuinely beyond. There isn't an expression how excited I am, and really grateful that you agreed. And I think this is such an amazing resource. Just for myself, I want to get into a commercial career, but I know very little about it, and it does seem that there's such a wide variety of differing opinions that sometimes you can kind of get lost. So the reason that I wanted to do this is to have someone like yourself who has just an absolute wealth of experience, who can actually speak with accuracy and with experience. So yeah, I'm so grateful. Thank you, Fiona.
Well, Darren, honestly, it's a pleasure, and I'm very flattered and delighted to be able to do this thing. But you are right that there are a ton of different opinions out there, and there are a ton of people with different kinds of experience. So everything I can talk about today and anytime is coming from my specific background, which is actually mostly magazines. Although I also work with commercial clients and in the book publishing world, and I do a lot of teaching these days as well. So basically, I can tell you what I found from my point of view, but you'll find as many opinions as you find people willing to share them. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's. But I think that's what makes your opinion at least valuable in my perspective, because you're not just saying something. You have the years of experience that you're putting behind that opinion. There's weight to it. So yeah. Anyway, that's just what I feel. Cool. So I suppose maybe we'll just get into it. And I just want to preface that, I mean, I'm primarily in the creative sense of photographer. So for me, asking the questions, it's primarily from asking for a photographer, so photography, but it's not only limited to photographers, it's for artists and designers, anyone in the visual arts and graphics field. So the questions are, I think, can be applied broadly, but I'm specifically going to be wording it as photography.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, cool. So the first question that I have for you is basically just a straight out of the gate. Is commercial photography oversaturated?
Okay, so I was thinking about this, and it depends really, I guess, what you mean by oversaturated. If you mean, are there do you mean, are there too many people trying to make a living that way?
Yes. Are there too many people? Are there too many cooks or chefs in the kitchen?
Um, it's a good question. I think the short answer, I think, is no. But the longer answer would be, if you think about commercial photography as if you're in a small place, as if you were based in a small town or even a small country, and there were a limited number of outlets for photographic work, and there were a large number of people all trying to get the same work, then sure, obviously it would be oversaturated. But in 2024, we live in the big wide world. You can find the market for commercial photography doesn't have to be limited. It can be wherever you want it to be, in theory, anyway. And I say that partly because my background with magazines is international. And so, for instance, I've worked on Vogue magazine, as the art director of a Vogue magazine a couple of times. And when people hear the word Vogue, they generally think about, if you're American, you think of American Vogue. If you're British, you think of British Vogue. But there are 29 editions of Vogue around the world. So,
Yeah.
they all have different aesthetics, different audiences, and different people contributing to them. And the same is true for every area of creative work these days. There are tons of places. You have to basically look up and look around and look at what is out there, and not blinker yourself, I suppose, is really what I'm saying. Yeah, I don't think it's oversaturated. And I also think, as an art director, speaking for myself and my colleagues and my clients and so on, we're always looking for choice. Everyone wants choice. Everyone wants new ideas. You want new opinions, new approaches, and you want to keep meeting new people, even if they aren't necessarily new to the business. They might be new to you. So, no, we need lots and lots and lots of people working in this area. Not oversaturated at all.
Thank you. Yeah, that's, I mean, I think that because on social media, you see there are a lot of photographers. So I mean, people would assume that it's oversaturated, but coming from what you have just shared, it does show that we live in a big world. So there are
Exactly.
opportunities, and those opportunities, if you don't try, then you never get them.
Exactly. Absolutely. And
So
just it's all about where you look. And if you feel that you're kind of not seeing enough opportunities, well, maybe you're just not looking hard enough. You need to look a little bit more broadly.
yeah. And then, yeah, that going into the next question, which is about looking, but also presenting yourself. Is there a top three most important things to do or have in order to secure commercial work prior to approaching an art director such as yourself? Like, is there best three things that you should do before approaching you?
There are quite a few things, probably more than three. However, the top three, I would say, obviously, it depends also on where you are coming from. So it's going to be different if you are if you're straight out of art college, or if you're a student, or it's going to be different if you have been doing your own practice as an artist, for example. For a few years, you've been working by yourself, and you decide you actually want to make more of a living with it, whatever that's going to be. So it depends on your experience. However, the first thing is get some experience. You can't really, no matter how nice a portfolio you have, you can't really walk into an appointment with an art director hoping to be commissioned uh, to do real work, to be commissioned for a real shoot, unless you actually have some experience on real shoots. Even if that experience is just shadowing photographers or assisting or whatever it's going to be, it's going to be a nightmare all around if you don't act, if you can't turn up on your first day of work without ever having done anything. So first thing you've got to do is you can't go in going, I have some lovely work, I want you to commission me and pay me, unless you already have experience of how a shoot works, of what happens on set or what happens on location, of how budgets work. So you need to have a bit of education, and that's, as I say, you can do that by shadowing photographers, by working as assistant, whatever. So that's the first really key thing. Then I would say it's very, very, very important, absolutely vital to familiarize yourself with the market, as in know which other photographers are working in the area you're working in. So, for instance, excuse me, if you want to be a food photographer, or if you want to be a drinks photographer, or if you want to be a wine photographer, let's make it a little more specific. If you really think, I love taking pictures of wine, I've been really working on my style, I really think I could try and make a living at this, you still need to familiarize yourself with the market for wine photography. Is it magazines? Is it catalogs? Is it online? Is it TV advertising? What is it? And who are the photographers who are doing it? Who are the people who are commissioning this kind of stuff? And what do they want? What are people doing at the moment? It doesn't necessarily mean that if you think, I love my wine photography and I've got this great style, and then you realize that nobody else has that style, it doesn't mean that that's a bad thing. It could be a fantastic thing. But you do have to familiarize yourself with the market. It's really pointless to kind of go in thinking, I have great work. I don't know what anyone else does, but you're lucky to have me. That's just not going to work. And then, first, the third thing I would add in here is you need to research the places that you actually want to work. So again, 3 things to have or to do before you approach an art director or before you get commercial work. The third thing is you have to research the places where you want to work, and you have to look up, particularly if you're approaching an art director, you have to look up the work that person's been doing. You have to familiarize yourself with what they've already done, because for a whole bunch of different reasons. The main one being, I guess, that you need to know that you're talking to the right person. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense.
So those would be my,
I guess that kind of
3 things. Yeah.
Okay. I guess that kind of answers the next question as well, because that's kind of like best steps for an artist or photographer to take if they want to pursue a commercial career, is do those things. Go about.
Yes, definitely do those things. But I would also say, to add to that, is to spend some time with professional photographers learning about what is involved. Because again, you might think, oh, I love taking photographs of lipsticks. I have a large collection of lipsticks and I love setting them up on my table, and I do some really cool stuff, and it looks as nice as the stuff that I've seen on, ads for Estee Lauder or whatever. But it's not until you actually speak to people who make a living doing that you find out how much you get paid for shooting this, how long it takes, how easy or hard it is to do that shoot to the client's expectations and demands, how many languages you're expected to speak if you're going to be shooting for Estee Lauder, what part of the world you're supposed to be in. So talking to, and I mean, when I say talking to, I mean meeting on Threads, on Instagram, wherever, having conversations with professional photographers who are already in that area is really, really helpful, I think. Just to find out what's involved, just again, to educate yourself and research what you might be getting yourself into. And then, sorry, I should also say that once you've done that, obviously, you need to tailor your website. You need to tailor your social media to reflect that as well. Again, there's no point in kind of going, right, I want to shoot lipsticks. I love doing that. But a couple of people I've spoken to, it's nowadays all about lip liner. So I'm not so sure about that. But I'm still going to just shoot the lipsticks on my website. if that's what you're going to do and you make a decision to do it, then that's fine. But if you are going out trying to sell yourself as a lipstick photographer and everybody wants a lip liner photographer, then be prepared. It may take a little longer than you originally hoped for. Again, I hope that makes sense.
That makes sense. And it's something that I believe is that, I mean, the markets and just how everything moves these days is very, very, very quick, that we try to catch on to a trend, I guess. But I think that if you just stick it out and do the thing that you're passionate about and you do it really well and consistently, eventually there will be people that see it. And I think that chasing the trend, sometimes we do need to move along with the times and keep up and be relevant. But also, I think sometimes we can stay relevant by really doing the good work, by working on what we know.
Absolutely, totally agree. And I think that, an awful lot of the time, the people who are the most successful photographers, honestly, in history in the world now and ongoing, tend to be the people who have a style. Style is really the thing. They have a style and they have an area of expertise which they have honed over years. People hire Nick Knight to shoot Nick Knight. People hire Annie Leibovitz to make stuff that looks like Annie Leibovitz. So even though sometimes the tide is out on that particular style of work, it'll come back. It's a trend, and trends come and go, but they are circular as well. So there's no point in kind of going, damn, my work isn't really in favor at the moment, so maybe I should change my work. You can try that, but you could just wait till the next time that trend comes around, because it will. It definitely will.
Yeah. Thank you. And then just something that also leads into the next question really well, like optimizing your social media or profiles. So is there a way that you would say there is to optimize Instagram for commercial discovery? And is Instagram a viable portfolio or discovery option?
This is also an excellent question, and this is so now. I mean, in this question, the question of social media and Instagram just hasn't been going away for years now, and I don't think it'll go away for a little bit longer still. So if I knew the answer to the algorithm question, I'd be rich. Unfortunately, the algorithm does keep changing. I mean, it really, there's nothing that you can kind of talk about chasing a train, but one of the things I do every year with my photography students at Oxford Brookes University, I teach them professional practice. And every year I have a session on best practice for websites and for social media. And every year it changes, because every year what worked last year is not the same as what's working now. And obviously Meta does this so that to keep us on our toes, to try and they're not doing it for anybody's benefit apart from their own benefit. So my feeling on the algorithm for Instagram particularly is you drive yourself crazy trying to game that system. So don't bother with it. However, I think there are some basic rules that just make total sense no matter what. First one is being consistent. Post consistently. Post 1, 2, or 3 times a week, once a week at least, 2 or 3 times a week. Post with a recognizable style, a format. Don't switch and swap and keep changing things so that people don't recognize you. At the same time, you don't want to be boring, but consistent posting. And I really feel very strongly that photographers should write a bit more. Not necessarily a huge, long story for every Instagram post, but I do think that you should, you can write something more than, the name of the person you're photographing or whatever.
Yeah.
And your website, Instagram shows your work and your personality. And personality in commercial photography and commercial success is key. If you are if you're an art photographer, it doesn't matter if you love people or hate people or are tongue-tied or just if you're an introvert, an extrovert, whatever. If you're an art photographer, or if you're doing your own work, or if you are propelled by your own way of doing things, then your personality is not something that the rest of the world has to have a say in. But if you actually want to work on with clients, with magazines, with book publishers, with other people, your personality is a part, plays a part in that. And Instagram gives you a way to showcase your personality. You don't have to, make a party out of it, but it's an opportunity to show yourself as a human being as well as a creator. And also, the thing about Instagram is it's free. I mean, a lot of the time, students particularly, they're very slow to use Instagram professionally. But honestly, I've been, if we'd had Instagram back in the 90s, when I started my freelance design career, I like to think I would have been using it to showcase my freelance work, to say I'm free and available. Because back in the 90s, all we could do was pick up the phone several times a day, day after day, and phone people up and say, hey, hi, I'm looking for work. Do you have any? So yeah, Instagram, incredibly useful tool. The algorithm keeps changing, but posting consistently, figuring out your own rhythm, and using it to showcase you as a human being, as well as you as a camera, is really, really, really important. I absolutely believe that.
Thank you very much. Social media is a beautiful tool. And I think, being a social media user myself, although albeit a terrible one, I've also been complaining about the algorithm, but I think I've come to realize that the algorithm really is just trained to give us what the majority of people want.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily the algorithm that's against us, it's that it's catering to what the broad majority wants.
Exactly. Absolutely.
And because it caters to us. So I think instead of complaining, find a way to use it.
Exactly. Absolutely. And I know we also, I as I said, the photographers that I teach particularly are slow to use it, and lots of photographers. I know we're seeing it on threads all the time as well. People going, I don't want to do this. I don't think it's working. I'm not seeing myself out there, or I'm not seeing my stuff. My stuff isn't being seen by the people I want to be seen by. But the fact is that every art director, pretty much, every picture buyer, every photo editor, every person who commissions photography that I know, who I've ever spoken to about this, when I say, where do you find photographers? They all say, well, first place is Instagram. It just is. And that's very straightforward because we have our phones with us all the time. We are online all the time. So if you don't have a representative, platform, if you're not using it to represent yourself in a realistic and efficient way, you're missing a trick, really missing a trick.
It's important, and it is. It's here to stay. Social media. So, and it's a way where, if it was in the 90s, if artists and creatives and photographers had that option available to put their work out to millions of eyes across the world, that's insane.
Exactly.
But we have that nowadays, and we're very slow to
exactly.
use it.
Absolutely.
And then, so next question. Sorry. Just speaking about portfolios, are there best practices for presenting decent portfolios? So, like, for example, show only 3 to 5 of each art style. Should your main page be a gallery, or should it be information about you? This is actually something that I saw on Threads.
Yeah. So if we're talking about an online portfolio, i.e. a website, I saw that question as well, and I really wanted to jump in and answer it because my feeling on that is very strong. That is, no, it shouldn't be just information on your homepage. A website, the great thing about a website is many great things about websites. So website portfolio, online portfolio, website, it is it's a different size to a phone. That's the first one. I know that sounds a bit dull, but let's face it, you know, our phones are these little things we're holding vertically and they're a couple of inches square. So you're seeing, your work is being seen one way on this little square thing. A website shows your work in a totally different format, at a totally different size. If you are being looked at by kind of big, successful art directors who work for ad agency and whatever, they're probably looking on a 24-inch screen. I'm looking at a 16-inch screen, but still it's, you know, 4 times bigger, 5 times bigger, 6 times bigger than my phone. So the first thing to keep in mind is literally the real estate of your screen. Now, if you think about it, you know, photographers are creative people. So you have to think about and think, so what do I want people to see when they look at my work on this big screen here? Do you really want people to see a white page with your name on it and a few other words? Or do you really want to see, you know, a page of text? Do you not surely want to see a fantastic gallery of moving images, maybe 6 moving images that kind of show what your work is like and make people want to click on them and find out more? Okay, I'm speaking for myself, and I there are plenty of other people who will say differently, but my advice is always think about how you want to use the real estate to really show off your best work. And a few practical things. As I say, I am a big fan of starting off with a carousel of images, and that carousel of images showing sort of 6 different stories that all look fantastic, and they don't all look identical, something like that. I absolutely think you need to click. You need to be able to click through everything to have a story, and every story should have a minimum of 6 images, probably not, you know, 20 or 30 images, unless you know, obviously there are going to be some times when that is necessary, but it depends on what you shot. But if you did a story with 2 stones, I'm reaching for stuff on my thing here. You had 2 stones here, and you put the 2 stones in the light, and the light looked beautiful, and you got really excited by it. You did a bunch of shots with it. Okay, I'm going to go fantastic, beautiful big picture of the 2 stones on your carousel, and maybe you go to the story from that, and there's kind of close-ups on the veins, and there's them from different angles, and then there's sort of like one and whatever. I'm actually kind of going to go, right, okay, how many images of the same thing do you need? So with students, I have been saying, if you have a bunch of different pictures that are related, so for instance, you're a food photographer and you've been shooting sandwiches, and you've been shooting curry, and you've been shooting cake, and you've been shooting pasta. I don't necessarily want 6 pictures of the same bowl of pasta, but I might want 6 pictures of different kinds of pasta. If you just have one of everything, it makes it look a bit like, well, was that a fluke? You know, was that a lucky shot? But if you have 10 pictures that are the same thing, it's just boring, and also shows that you're not really thinking about what the audience wants. But that would be my key thing, is just consider, don't think about don't even think about what I'm saying to you, apart from it's a big piece of real estate on a screen there. What do you want it to look like? If you are the kind of person who says, right, I really want it to be a bunch of words, then that tells me something about you and the kind of work you do. And if you're happy with that, then fine. But I think it's a slightly missed opportunity, personally. That's what I think.
Yeah, that's what I feel. And I mean, I also I wanted to also respond. And I mean, I'm not a professional. I don't have much experience at all in that kind of thing. I do have my own portfolio, but for me, it just makes sense, because if you tell someone, like if they say, "Hey, I need a photographer," and you're like, "Oh, I'm a
Yeah,
photographer," they're not going to say, "Okay, cool, tell me about yourself." They're going to say, "Can I see your
exactly.
work?"
Exactly.
That's the first thing they're going to
Of
ask.
course. Absolutely. And that's the first thing they should ask.
So I
Yeah.
just think, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I just thought that that would be the best thing to put up front. And then if they want to know more about you and your practice, then it will be available for them. It should be available for them, but they want to see your work first and foremost.
And I think also,
and then,
sorry, and just one last point on the the website and the online portfolio thing is, all the other thing, make it easy to make yourself contactable, because your point about talking to you and getting to know you and all that stuff, that is absolutely vital. So, if you have an email address or an email form on your website, first of all, I personally hate email forms because I just want an email address that I can click on and send. But if you have an email form on your website, for God's sake, check it. It's really bloody annoying when you're an art director and you found something, you think, okay, I want to work with this person, perhaps. You send them an email request and they don't get back to you for a week. That's really stupid. Make yourself contactable, make yourself, and put your phone number on there and answer your phone. Put your Instagram on there and check your DMs. Put your email on there and make sure you're checking your emails as well, because otherwise, complete and total waste of time and will really turn people off.
Thank you. Thank you. Then I wanted to, how would one go about finding an art director to contact? And should we search for art directors and contact them, or should we wait for art directors to find us?
Whatever works, I say, is the short answer. If you're lucky enough to have people coming knocking on your door, then that's great. And if you do, there's some things you can do, I think, that will encourage people to come knocking on your door. But most of us, normal mortals, including me, when I'm looking for work, I have to reach out. You just have to reach out because people are busy, people are doing things. So how to find art directors is a $64,000 question. And back in the day when I was freelancing more as a baby freelance graphic designer, one of the reasons I worked in magazines so much, apart from the fact that I adore magazines, is because if you get a magazine, you can look at the masthead. You can look at the list of people who are on it, and you can find their names, and you can find their phone numbers back then, and you could call them. Now, if you want to work in magazines, that's still applicable, especially if you have print magazines. You will be, I'm looking here, got a couple of things on here. You can find the masthead somewhere in oh yeah, here we go. All right, so this is Waitrose Food Illustrated, which I'm bringing to my sister. And here's the list: the editor, the art director, deputy art director, art editor, picture editor, blah blah. All the names are there. The agency that works on this magazine is listed on there. So that's the first thing. That's the easy thing to do if you want to work in that area. And that applies all over the world to everything. And if you can't find the masthead in the print magazine, have a look online, because if the magazine has a website, there's a strong possibility you'll find it there. Or worst case scenario, you'll find a contact there that you can call up or email and find details. So that's one thing. Another thing is, if you want to work for other things than magazines. So the key thing that we talk to our students about at Brooks is this question of, where does work like mine appear? So you have to be able to situate your own work in the market, and think about, I want to be seen in Waitrose Food magazine or Vogue magazine, or I want to be seen in a Chanel advertising campaign on a giant billboard, or I want to be seen in an online campaign for a financial institution or something. You have to figure out where stuff like yours tends to appear. So if you like photographing lipsticks, you need to go, where am I seeing this? Am I seeing it inside fashion magazines? Am I seeing it on YouTube? Am I seeing it on TV advertising, on film advertising, wherever? So first of all, find out where the work that you like, that you relate to, is appearing. And then you got to research who's producing that work. So For things like advertising, go to Google and look at the advertising agencies. It's not the most straightforward thing, far from it. However, it does exist. You can actually spend some time looking up who's who on ad agencies, what work ad agencies is doing. And then once you start to find agencies, whether it's design agencies or ad agencies or whoever, creative agencies of all kinds in New York or Beijing or London or wherever it's going to be, Seoul, Cape Town, whatever, then you'll find the names again, you find people's names on there, and then you have to approach those people. So research, but that's the real way to do it. Find stuff that you like, that you relate to, and then find out who made that, and try and track down those people. That's what I always do.
Awesome. Thank you. And then, so that goes into the next one really, really nicely as well. How do we approach, once we've found that we've done that research and we've found, let's say I looked on Vogue for Hong Kong, and I saw your name on the masthead. What is best way for me to approach you? Like, what should I include in the email, or how?
Okay, well, before you even approach the person with an email or whatever, you got to do a bit more research. You've got to actually make sure that your work fits with the work of that outlet. So, for instance, if you're an architecture photographer, if you love shooting architecture, and you have a great, website full of architecture photography, then you probably should not be approaching a magazine like World of Interiors or House and Garden or Elle Deco. You should probably be approaching Blueprint or AD, or you should be approaching an architecture. So you have to actually seriously think, okay, I love this. This is what I do. Can I just go and start talking to these people? You can't necessarily. It doesn't really work as simply as that. You have to do your research to make sure that your work is a good fit with what they do. And this means not only looking at what they're doing like right now for this quarter or this year or whatever. It's a really good idea to go back and have a look at what they were doing previously. So I'm talking about art directors more than anything else at this point, and at agencies and to an extent, and publications. If someone contacts me and they've looked at the latest edition of something I've been involved in, I can tell that they haven't really done the homework in terms of, really, really looking into the subject. You need to actually look harder, look back further, really educate yourself about what people have done. And then when you kind of go, right, I know what this person does. I've looked at what they've been doing for the last 2 years. I've seen what they did 5 years ago. I like their own website, or I like this story and this story and this story that they worked on. Then you can email them or DM them, or whichever you like. You can phone them if you like, but emailing and DMing is much more simple. And what I'm looking for when people get in touch with me is some evidence that that person knows what they're talking about, i.e. they have actually thought about why they want to talk to me. So I always give the example of somebody I know who wanted a job, again, it's a magazine thing, but she wanted a job on Vogue Scandinavia as a picture editor. And she asked me some advice, and I said, well, why do you want that job? And she said, because I love their ethos and I love their idea, and my mum is from Sweden or something like that. And I said, okay, but what stories did you like in the most recent edition of the magazine? And she said, oh, I haven't seen the most recent edition. And I said, okay, well, what previous stories did you like? And she said, actually, I haven't seen it at all. And I'm like, okay, why would somebody hire you to work on something that you haven't, you know, you don't know what they do? Why would I hire somebody to work on something if that person has no understanding of what I do? So you really, really got to do the research, because that's what I'm expecting if you get in touch. I want people to say, I love this and this and this. I'd love to talk to you, or I, about my work, and this is why. And don't make it about you, make it about me. Do you know what I mean? Don't make it about you, the photographer. Make it about the person that you're approaching. Um, I I think we all assume that a photographer, a designer, an artist, whatever, is is able to do the work. But the question is whether they understand what I need. And I don't need people. I also tell students, particularly when you're looking for work experience or getting a job or whatever, don't email and say, I'm really hardworking, I'm really responsible, I have a lot to offer, because frankly, let me be the judge of that. Email me and say, I love what you do. I love what you did here. I really loved the stuff that you did 6 months ago on that. And that's why you want to talk to me. So then you put that together, you email them, you DM them, whatever, and then you keep at it. You keep emailing, you keep DMing them until you get a reply. And this is something that I don't know if you noticed this, Darren, but we've had this going on every now and then on Threads. The how long do you keep hassling people before you give up question?
Yeah.
And my answer to that is always, look, people get in touch with you all the time, but if you're busy, you might not have time to get back in touch with them. It doesn't mean you hate that person. It doesn't mean you don't want to talk to that person. It means you're doing other stuff. So if you're trying to get hold of any professional in the business, and they don't reply to you within a couple of days, don't stress. If they don't reply to you in a week, maybe email them again the following week. Certainly don't leave it, another too much longer. Because the other thing is, if you don't keep calling me, keep in touch, keep trying, I'm going to assume you weren't interested in the first place. Quite frankly, I'm going to think, okay, so they got something else, or somebody else helped them, or they weren't interested in the end, so I'm not going to bother. You actually have to not ghost people. And sooner or later, you'll either get someone saying, okay, yes, let's have a call or whatever, or they'll reply to you and say, oh, yeah, no, actually, no. In which case, fine, move on to the next thing. But don't ghost people.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, no is not a bad thing.
No, it's not.
It means you can also be saying no, but also if an art director says no, then that's okay. Well, at least now I know.
Exactly.
Maybe there's something that I can change.
Exactly.
If there's some, or it's okay, I need to move on to the next thing. But yeah, keep at it.
And don't.
That's really
I think
awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's don't make assumptions. Don't assume that just because you haven't heard from somebody that they don't like you or something. The world isn't about we're not 5 years old. We all have to kind of like just respect that people are busy, but at some point they'll either say yes or they'll say no, and move on from there.
Yeah. Then just quickly, do you have any standout websites or portfolios that we possibly could use as like a reference to see what a good portfolio website is, or is that even a thing?
That's a tricky one. I personally think the world is absolutely full of great photographers' websites. However, pulling out a couple of examples I found really, really tricky. So I didn't do that, because the thing is, I actually think that Instagram is much more useful for the initial contacts, and also because once a lot of people don't even bother with websites. Lots of practitioners don't bother with websites. I believe that you really do need a website, but lots of people who commission photography, actually quite a lot of them say, I don't bother looking at websites. If it's not on Instagram, then I'm not that bothered. I've had quite a few conversations about that. So I think that websites, while I think they're incredibly useful, They also date quite quickly, websites. So you need to make your own mind up about the websites. But I did think of a couple of Instagram accounts that I would use as good examples. Would you like to hear those ones?
Absolutely. Yes, please.
Okay, so these are three people who I think, well, the first person is Tom Oldham. He's British. In fact, I think they're all British, actually. His Instagram handle is at Tommy O Photo, Tom Oldham. Now, Tom is a Sony World Photographer of the Year. He's won a ton of awards. He's a Sony brand ambassador at the moment, and he's a very successful photographer, and he's a really great guy. He's a lovely, lovely guy. And his Instagram is really, I think, exemplary. It shows his work and it shows his personality. It looks sharp, it looks smart. And the way he posts, if you have a look at the way he posts, he posts in batches. He does like 3s or 6s or whatever. So you've got that clean, uniform style coming through. And in terms of photography, Tom's photography is not all absolutely one style. He changes it around quite a little bit. You get different ways of looking at things. And he shoots celebrities, but he shoots for music magazines. He shoots for he's got something on at the moment for a detergent or something, but it still looks great. It's really, really well done. And the captions that he writes is very warm. It's full of personality. He credits everybody on the shoot, and he talks about what he does. And he's one of these people who every time he posts, I check. I always read his post because I feel very drawn to it. I love the warmth and personality that comes through. And as I say, he's very successful. He's always in demand. And a lot of that is just due to the way he uses social media. So Tom is one, then Tim Clinch at ClinchPics, ClinchPics. Tim Clinch, another Brit, is another one. Now, Tim lives in Bulgaria, I think, these days. I used to work with him a million years ago on House and Garden magazine. Tim, he's a travel photographer, food photographer, lifestyle photographer. He has worked for lots of different clients all over the world in his day. And it's a gem of an Instagram account. He takes pictures of his dogs. He takes pictures of his neighbors. He takes pictures of the house and the garden and the rest of it. And as I say, it's in Bulgaria, but he also, he's spent time in France. He spent time in Spain. So he talks about the things that make life good. And it's a very emotional account as well. And the emotions are far from always positive. There's a lot going on. His one of his favorite people in the world is based in Kiev, and so there's a lot of sadness about that. But again, he's another photographer. Tim tends to write very long, doesn't always, but tends to write very long captions. And every time I see it, I just have to read. And he has a slightly cultish following because you just get such a sense of a wonderful photographer living a very rich life from Tim Clinch's photography account. It's a very different feel to Tom Oldham and a different approach to photography, but it works so beautifully. It's just perfect Instagram account. And then the last person who I pulled out is Ross Atkinson. Now, Ross's account, she's another Brit. Ross's account is called her_dark_materials. And her style is, she's basically a food and flowers photographer. And her style is so consistent. I mean, every picture has the same style. Everything's on black backgrounds. Everything is kind of like, sort of like medieval lighting on it and stuff. But it's beautiful and it's so consistent, and her writing is hilarious. Very self-deprecatory. She talks about what she's doing. She talks about the pictures. She talks about things going wrong on the sides. And again, it's just a beautiful use of Instagram by a photographer where her work is fabulously showcased, but so is her personality, and you really want to have a connection with that person. So those, as I say, three very different photographers. Oh, and Ross has got something like 87,000 followers. She's a huge following on Instagram. And I'm just checking. Yeah, anyway, so she has a very large following on Instagram. And I just find that the three of those are very different, but they are excellent ways of just showing, of using Instagram. 81,000 followers she's got, using this free, it's a free resource, and using it to build your work as, and your following as a photographer, and build your career as a photographer. I'm kind of like gushing away there, but I think it's really, really worth having a look at those guys.
Thank you. I'm gonna, and just being able to have that too. Yeah, I have, there's Nadav Kanda.
Yeah.
That I absolutely love his profile and his Instagram, and he also does do. He doesn't post much as well, but when he does post, it's like I have to absolutely see, because his imagery is amazing.
Yeah.
But also he does tell a bit of a story. And he just recently posted about the King Lear actors, and he's sharing the portraits that he shot. And it's beautiful to see the imagery that they make.
Yeah.
But hearing the story behind it, and hearing their person come out of it, I think for me, just even as a photographer, it's something that I want to aspire to.
Yeah.
That people will see the images that I make, but also want to know about the person who's making the images.
Exactly. And this is the thing, is there's a million people out there who could, your very first question, Darren, about whether things are oversaturated. There are a million people out there doing photography wherever you are, but there aren't a million people doing it with the aesthetic and personality and heart and the rest of it that you can find from the way some people present themselves on Instagram. And those three that I've given, Nadav Kanda is a legend, whereas Tom Oldham, Tim Clinch, and Ross Atkins are more kind of like they're working commercial photographers. But the way that they work on Instagram, the way they use it is just, for me, it's a masterclass in how to use social media as a photographer nowadays.
Thank you. That's an excellent resource just for us to be able, and a free resource, which is amazing.
Exactly.
I'm very aware of your time, so I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I know that you have so many things to do, and it's still, you've got a day ahead of you.
That's okay. We're
so
nearly
I just
there.
wanted to quickly get into. Just wanted to finish the statement. So like just end like a little, a sentence or two. So let's see. The first one is photographers must know these three things.
Photographers must know these three things, and obviously not the really obvious things like how to take good photographs, when to shutter. Photographer must know these three things. Actually, Darren, can you ask me the next question? Let me come back to that.
Okay. The Holy Grail of commercial success is.
Okay. Well, so the Holy Grail of commercial success is kind of up to you, really, isn't it? It's up to an individual. What do you really want? Do you want to see your work on the cover of National Geographic, or do you want to see your work on a billboard in Times Square? For me, the Holy Grail of commercial success as an art director, not a photographer, is just making a nice living while doing interesting work in interesting places with interesting people. I think it's got to be different for everybody, and only the individual can decide what their own Holy Grail is. Does that make sense?
That makes absolute sense. And I saw that's kind of like if you would say a catchphrase, that's something that you for your life, you've said that you want to make interesting work with interesting people.
Yeah, in interesting places.
And I think that's incredibly beautiful, because in interesting places. because I think we can really chase, I don't know, virality, maybe being like the lifestyles of the rich and famous. But for me, that matters far less than the life that I get to live. And if I can live it via what I'm passionate about, that's commercial success, or the holy grail for me.
Exactly. Exactly. And my interesting work, interesting places, interesting people is definitely my personal manifesto, and has been pretty much for 35 or more years at this point. And it really helps as well, because even when we all go through phases when our work is a pain, or when we're working too much, or when we're overtired, or we're dealing with people who are stressful, or whatever it is. But as long as you're not saying, I want to do beautiful work with fabulous people in gorgeous places all the time, then you kind of go, okay, it's fine. It's not gorgeous, it's not fabulous, it's a pain in the ass, but it's interesting. Interesting is a useful word in these occasions, I find.
Yeah, I think also, I mean, sometimes the what we would say as negative can be very beautiful. And I mean, it doesn't have to be beautiful in like a kind of a sense. It can be beautiful because it's a glimpse into humanity's condition.
Exactly. Absolutely. That too.
So show, yeah. But interesting. And then, so I skipped the first one. Actually, was don't get into commercial photography if.
Oh, yes. Don't get into commercial photography if you don't really enjoy interacting with people. Now, this is a serious thing. As I said earlier, if you want to work as an art photographer, or you have your own practice, your own studio, you're doing your own thing, you're not going out there much, then you can be an introvert, you can be whatever you want to be. But if you actually want to have commercial success, meaning you get commissioned to do stuff for magazines or books or campaigns or advertising or whatever it is, or work on film sets, or work behind the scenes of TV, or whatever it is, you have to get on with people. You have to not just get on with people, you have to actively enjoy interacting with people, whether that's clients or art directors or subjects, the people you're shooting, or the assistants on the shoot, or whatever it is. If you don't actively enjoy it, I think that's going to be a problem, because so much of photography, commercial photography, is about the people that you're with. You can take the most beautiful pictures in the world, but if you are a nightmare on set, or if you can't deliver your work on time, or if you're briefed to do one thing and you do something completely different, then your career is not going to take off. So don't get into commercial photography you don't really enjoy interacting with people, because you're going to have to do that. That's what I think.
Thank you. Yeah, that was the last. And then I know you like to do something when you do your lectures and when you just teach.
Yeah.
You like to do unsolicited advice for young photographers.
Unsolicited advice, yeah. This is a strand that I started in my lectures at least 10 years ago now, I guess. I used to lecture at the University of Gloucester, and the unsolicited advice of young photographers also sometimes turns into unsolicited advice for older photographers, and sometimes into unsolicited advice for a whole bunch of other kind of people. But there at the moment, I think I'm up to about, the advice changes. Usually it gets bigger. And at the moment I'm up to about a dozen different things this year that I've been talking about. And they include things like, on the day of a shoot, clear your diary. Don't overbook yourself. Before a shoot, recce the location. My God, the number of times that I've been on a shoot or come to a shoot or something, only to realize that it's not what we expected, or there's no parking, or the light's completely different to what it was, or the room's completely different to what it was on the photographs we saw before we started shoot. Things like things like don't play shit music on a shoot. Honestly, the thing is an awful lot to do with kind of like managing the energy on a shoot as much as anything else, making sure that people get fed. Unsolicited advice for young photographers, things like don't experiment on your client's budget. I always say, don't surprise me. Alexei Brodovich used to say to his design students, astonish me. I'm like, do not surprise me. If I hired you to do something, I expect you to come back with that thing. And so, more importantly, does my boss. We do not expect that we hire you to do some, colored lifestyle photographs of a singer in a studio, and you come back with some moody black and white pictures of them in the car park or something. Just don't surprise me. So yeah, there's a lot of unsolicited advice for young photographers. I have to kind of like sometimes, because there's a lot of it comes out. But anyway, yeah. Anyway, and one of the unsolicited advices I could give myself is to charge my phone, because I think I've got about 10% left, Darren. I'm going to have to go.
Oh, no. I've already taken too much of your time. Thank you so much,
Such
Fiona.
a pleasure.
It's been amazing.
Pleasure.
And yeah.
Absolutely. Excellent questions. Thanks a million.
Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You have a wonderful day. Wonderful rest of the week. And I'll see you on Threads.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, that was so yeah, if you've been watching, genuinely appreciate that, and I hope, well, I know that I got so much for myself, so I'm sure there is a lot for you all to learn from and take in. And yeah, hopefully maybe we can do this again. If there's any other questions, let me know in the chat. Fiona is an absolutely, you saw, incredible person, really friendly, bubbly, and warm, and just so eager to share her experience and her wisdom. So yeah, reach out to her on Threads and Instagram. Follow her and follow those accounts. I'll be tagging them in the chats. And yeah, learn and let's just make stuff. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I appreciate it. And yeah, be blessed.